to get started here. I'm going to read a little short bio. Everybody that's on the call that got the bridge number should have been able to see the complete bio. If I read the complete bio, it'll probably take about 5 minutes away from presentation. So I want to give Vince all the time we can give him. Tonight's call, Coaches Roundtable, presented by the Coaches Advisory Committee from Georgia. My name is Ron Williams. I'm the chair of the Georgia Coaches Advisory Committee. Tonight we have Vince Anderson from Texas A&M, now in his 28th season of coaching and ninth season as assistant coach at Texas A&M. Vince has enjoyed banner seasons with the Aggie women's sprint and hurdle crews. In addition to numerous Big 12 and NCAA titles, the Aggies also established collegiate records in the 4x1, 4x2, and shuttle hurdle relays over the past couple of seasons. Coach Anderson is responsible for coaching the women's sprints, women's hurdles, as well as sharing coordination of the relays with Coach Henry. Vince who is expertly assisted in his duties by volunteer assistant Andreas Bam, also shares in recruiting responsibilities with the rest of the Aggies coaching staff. Vince is a longtime friend of mine. We go way back to his days in Tennessee. He's coached and recruited and coached a lot of athletes that come out of DC Express Club program. And we've remained friends since, I guess it would be back in the 80s.
1989.
1989. So without any further delay, Vince, we're going to turn it over to you, and he's going to talk to us about sprints and relays and acceleration and all kind of good things. All right, you got it.
Well, thanks, Ron. I really appreciate it. And I was, when you called me the other day, and then we saw each other this weekend, I was thinking how long we really have known each other, because I think I recruited Tisha in the summer of 1989, and that's been a while now. So you and I are still hanging in there, so that's a good thing.
Hey, don't make me old, guys. Now, I'm not that old.
That was a reflection, Tisha, that was a reflection of us, not of you.
I know, I'm sorry.
That was about me, not about, you're still young and beautiful, so you don't have to worry about all this stuff. So anyway, it's a pleasure to be here. I thought I would, when I coach, I always try to err on the side of simplicity and never on the side of complexity. So without trying to be too simplistic, I thought I would go over and kind of explain kind of our general approaches to things. As a coach, I think you work on a pattern a little bit in your weekly template of training, or at least I do. I started out when I was coaching, I had to distribute the work in a particular way within the week. And then as you mature as a coach and as you go on, you're constantly examining that template and refining it and doing a little bit more of this, a little bit less of that. And so gradually over time, your training plan, your training template doesn't look at all like it once did. Now, we never change radically, but, I joke, my training template turns over about every 15 years. So, about every 15 years, my training template didn't look like it did, 15 years prior. I changed about 5 to 7% a year, and you do that for 15 years, then everything's been changed. So we're always examining what we do. We're always looking at the year in context of how we trained. We're always looking at the year in context of how the year went relative to what we were trying to teach and install. Okay, we were trying to install A, B, and C. Did we install A? We examined that question. Did we install B? Did we install C? And the degree to which we can answer that question affirmatively or successfully, is the degree to which we change things. And if something didn't go very well, we look at ourselves first. What could we have done better? What are we not saying? What are we not doing? What are we not getting across? Why are we failing to get this to our athletes, et cetera? And so it's those kind of things that determine the slight changes in our template every year. And that is a fairly painful process. And I think the earlier in your career you are, the more painful it is as you get used to doing that, and the more experience you gather in that self-examination at the end of each season, it becomes a little bit easier, a little more efficient, and that kind of thing. But, I'm constantly testing my current state of awareness with how well my athletes are doing. I'm constantly testing my own knowledge. I go to coaching clinics every year. I've never stopped doing that. Since the year I began coaching, I've gone to at least one continuing education event every year, and that's since 1986. So I've 28 years in a row, I've gone to some kind of continuing education event, whether that's sitting in on coaches' lectures at the U.S. Track and Field Convention, or whether I'm sitting in on somebody's lecture at the USA Coaches Association lecture, or whether, I'm presenting at a coaches academy like I did last summer. And any time I'm presenting at a place, I'm obviously not talking in every slot, so when I'm not speaking, I'm going to another room and finding somebody that I need to listen to learn more about what I'm doing. So I'm always kind of trying to examine or challenge my own understanding of things so that I can sort of get better and respond and grow and adapt. So I don't know what the word for that is. I think that takes a certain kind of curiosity, maybe. It's also a little humbling, because you never are satisfied with how well you're able to do something. You might reach 10 of your 12 athletes. Why didn't I reach the other 2? So there's always something about coaching that you never get all of it. You never impart all of what you're trying to do to all of your athletes. So you're constantly striving to do better. And it's sort of that imperfection, the built-in failure, if you will, of coaching, that I think it makes it easy for us coaches to sort of stay humble and keep hammering away at the rock pile in a way that maybe we can get more efficient over time. But I think the key is always examining yourself, your own limits in terms of knowledge, your own limits in terms of your ability to express something, the cues you give, so on and so forth. So this is sort of my struggle daily, and this is kind of the world I live in. And I think that those sort of general remarks, I know I haven't talked specifically about training yet, but that general idea, the general idea of making revisions or making necessary changes within an existing framework of training that you're already familiar with is an important and vital idea to a living coach. To not do that is to be dying as a coach. So, does that beg any questions or any? Should I just plunge right in now? Okay.
Well,
okay. Yeah, go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
No, Vince. I was going to say, if you want to go ahead and make the presentation, and then everybody will kind of write their questions down, and then we'll just open it up.
Okay, great. All right. So, again, in planning our week, we feel that there are basically two elements that are indispensable and must be accounted for any successful sprint or hurdle athlete. The first is the ability to accelerate. Okay. The other is the ability to run with efficient, is to run tall, what we call, efficient maximum velocity posture. And, if you look around, just at developing athletes, at age group levels and high school levels and even in college, there's very few people who can do those things. And the reason they can't do them isn't because they're difficult or the moves are hard. The reason they can't do them is the skills aren't taught. And the first thing we understand is that speed, success in the sprints and hurdles, is a learned and acquired skill. Just like shooting free throws or leading with your left hand, when you're a left-handed batter. People teach hitting in baseball. People are very religious about working on the mechanics of their golf swing in golf. Every basketball player is concerned about the mechanics of their jump shot. But a lot of sprinters aren't really concerned about mechanics at all. So that's the number one role of a coach, is to begin to impart to the athletes that sprinting isn't just, it's not mindless running. Sprinting is running with a purpose. My dear colleague Jim Van Ottingen says very, very accurately, there's 3 rules of track and field, playing off the idea that there's 3 rules of real estate. The first rule of track and field is posture. Rule number 2 is posture. And the third rule of track and field is posture. And he's dead right. It's one of the most articulate things I've ever heard. And what makes this so in the backdrop of what I call lack of concern about posture, or lack of concern about sprint technique, or lack of awareness about sprint technique on the part of athletes, what makes me concerned is we live in a culture where if a child wants to hit a marvelous dance move, they choose the absolute best practitioners. They look at Michael Jackson, they look at Beyonce, they look at Usher, they look at somebody on a music video who can really, really move. And with complete intent, they look at the move on the TV and try to articulate it on their own, and they'll practice it if necessary until they get it. So we live in a society where people are used to looking at moves and marking moves. People do that in basketball. If someone has a fantastic sort of between-the-leg move, if someone has a reverse spin move in football, people are very good about seeing moves and copying them. But in track, in athletics, in sprinting, nobody is copying the best practitioners. No one's trying to run like Carl Lewis, who's the greatest of all time. No one's trying to run like Carmelita Jeter. They're not seeing them and just mimicking how they move. What they're doing is they're mimicking and seeing what they see around them, which tends to be long, slow, overstriding, bad, no push. So in everything else in life, human nature is to copy those that do a particular move or do a particular activity with great beauty and efficiency. And in track, we're copying Joe down the street, Susie down the block, sort of every cat we see at the track meet, because they're all doing the same thing. There's no awareness to look beyond the amateurs into the highest reaches of the game and practice those people's moves. And I know I was the same when I was a kid. If we were going to practice a move, we were going to practice Gus Johnson. We were going to imitate Gus Johnson's finger roll or Elvin Hayes' turnaround jump shot. I'm dating myself, but and so you have to bring this awareness to the children we're coaching. Like, have you seen Usain Bolt run? Have you seen Carmelita run? Have you watched them? Why do you run like you do? Why aren't you trying to run like they are? Up tall, putting your feet down, no reaching, no overstriding, And so sort of like bringing up these issues, you can begin to maybe soften the brain of our students a little bit into thinking, well, maybe there is another way to get this done more efficiently or better. So that's the context in which we teach. So, it's posture, posture, posture all the time. And so in trying to teach acceleration and in trying to teach maximum velocity posture, in our training template, we allow 2 days where acceleration is the main focus of the workout. And in our template, that would be in the fall, Monday and Friday. I'll always talk about early season training first because it's so important. So Monday is a day where the main purpose of training is to teach and practice acceleration, and we start that on the first day of training because it is so important and it takes so long. We can't wait. We can't delay that. We can't put it off till some later date in the season. We can't wait till, quote, unquote, we're in shape, which is a phrase that I'm deeply suspicious of and I hate hearing. We immediately start it because it's so important, and it takes a while to learn it. It doesn't take 2 weeks. Some people don't get it in 4 years, so you have to allow lots of time, so we start early. So Mondays and Fridays, we're working on acceleration. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, those days are what we call, those are reserved for teaching maximum velocity posture. Once you've pushed, once you've accelerated, and you're finally up, and you're vertical, how do you move your parts? How do you look? What does it feel like? How does that? How do you learn to coordinate that? And we also start that. Obviously we start that the second day of practice. First day of practice, we practice acceleration, and because we do that on Mondays, Tuesday because we practice maximum velocity posture and sprint mechanics. Boom, the second day of practice, we introduce that. Eventually, we have to blend the two, of course, into a holistic run, but you begin by teaching those component parts because the irony of all this is that part of the confusion of people think acceleration and maximum velocity posture, they tend to blend them together, and they're two totally different qualities. They're two totally different aptitudes. And like some people are better at maximum velocity posture than they are at acceleration. And then you have another group of people who are better at acceleration than they are at maximum velocity posture. And so you have to address all these things and clean it up. But in our teaching sequence, we're going to start with acceleration on Monday. We're going to have an acceleration day on Friday. Tuesday is going to be from maximum velocity posture. And so is Thursday. And also at the conclusion, because maximum velocity posture work is a fantastic warm-up, and it really gets everything tuning and firing and coordinated, we'll also have some specific race tempo at the conclusion of maximal velocity posture work, which we call VMAX. For short, or the wicket drill, the VMAX drill or the wicket drill. We'll then do tempo 1 after that, and then tempo 2 will be on Thursday. And tempo 1 and tempo 2, even on the first week of practice, will be reasonably close to race pace. Now, that's a whole other discussion that we'll bring in. But like for example, let's take an athlete. For purposes of talking, we'll say I'm training a bunch of athletes. I'm trying to get to a run 60 flat for the quarter, okay? So that could be a developmental boy. It could be a good high school female, something like that. We are never, ever, ever in the course of the year going to run anything at 72-second pace. So, for example, in the fall, if we're doing 200s, the 200s aren't ever going to be in 36. Ever. Because for a person trying to run 60 flat, 72-second pace is irrelevant to the performance. It's completely unrelated and unhelpful to what they're trying to do. It would be like trying to learn French, and you're listening to a German tape in your car. Like, if you're going to learn French, listen to French. So you can't want someone to run 60 seconds in the quarter and train them at any time of the season at 72 second pace, which would be 36 seconds for a 200. It would be what would that? That would be 27 second pace for a 150, etc. So if a person's running, if I'm trying to train someone to run 60 flat, even in the first week of practice, we're going to be running things close to race pace. So I'm going to be running 200s at 32, 31, 150s at, 21.5, 21.7. Like, we're going to get right into it. And that's okay, because they can't on the first day of practice run 60 flat for a quarter, but they can sure as heck run 21.7 for a 150 on the very first day of practice. So on the very first day of practice, you can get them in sort of near race tempos. And, of course, with some logical progression, you can gradually grow out the number that you do and the size of the chunks. But you can start with small chunks right at race pace from day one. And that's an important learning idea, so that as you move forward to the season, basically, if you will, we're training at race pace or faster the entire year from the first day of practice. No warm-up, no preamble, general preparation does not mean long, slow, unrelated, non-specific running. That's not what general preparation means. General preparation means teaching in a specific way, in an introductory way, about where we're going to go. We're going to work on the exact skills we are going to have in the championship phase of the season. We're just not maybe going to do them in as large as chunks. So that's our basic template, is acceleration development on Monday, Friday, maximum velocity posture installation on Tuesday, Thursday. Wednesday is an active recovery day where we're doing lots of general strength, hurdle mobility, sometime a pool session, and Saturday is somewhat like Wednesday. In the fall, we usually do a pool session where we're doing lots of mobility exercises or running exercises in, chest-deep water. Saturday, we're doing general strength exercises. We're doing those same kind of exercises, but we're on the grass. We're on land. We're load-bearing. So, and then Sunday is complete rest. So you have Monday, Friday, acceleration. Tuesday, Thursday, max velocity and tempo. Wednesday, Saturday, general strength, active recovery days. Now, overlaid over that entire template, we lift Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Now, you could, of course, lift Tuesday and Thursday, but we lift Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for a reason. As I've told you, Monday and Friday are acceleration days, and the way we lift and train, we teach, and the things we do, weight training dovetails beautifully. It's compatible work with acceleration training. And we lift very, very hard, and we, again, avoid generic, slow, non-specific lifting. We teach our athletes how to do Olympic lifts. We teach our athletes to snatch. We teach our athletes to power clean. We do some static lifts, but those aren't, we do some squatting. We do some bench press or incline press. But the real focus of our weight training program is to get really, really, really good at the Olympic lifts, the snatches, the cleans. And there's several reasonable, like I'm not a great strength training coach, but I'm pretty good. I know my way around the weight room. I know teaching progressions. I can coach my athlete in the power clean technically just like I can in acceleration. And that's good because acceleration and power cleans are the same thing. The standing long jump, overhead back throws, power cleaning, and clearing your blocks is all the same thing. It's the same movement. and everything we do is talking about coordinating those moves all in the same way. Because, and people who are great accelerators, are great at the power clean. People who are great accelerators are great standing long jumpers. People who are great accelerators throw the shot over their head backward very far and between their knees forward very far. So all those skills, have to do with, lining up your force lines, into a nice power line position. And all those things are really good compatible work, with acceleration and the weight room. So for that reason, because we accelerate Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we also lift, because we accelerate on Monday and Friday, we also lift on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So Wednesday, the active recovery day, we follow up with a weight session. And that is our basic template for the fall. Now, in the spring, once we start traveling and going to competitions, the overall model of that remains the same. We accelerate. We do acceleration development on Monday. We do max velocity mechanics and tempo training on Tuesday. Wednesday is, because now we're traveling, the week is condensed. So depending on the rigors of the week before, Wednesday will remain an active recovery day, or Wednesday will be a reduced volume day around some specific activity like relay exchanges or a second acceleration development day. And then Thursday will be very often just maximal velocity development and 4x400 exchanges, something very, very simple. Because most of the week's activity have been installed. So we approach track training a lot like we do football practice. In that, depending, I remember when I played football in high school. If it's a short week, like we have to depart on a Wednesday or a Thursday, that's going to curtail the number of training activities we have before we leave for the meet. So the practices have to reflect that in terms of the things you install and create for that week. If we're traveling on a Friday, then Thursday can become a day we can utilize for training. If it's just a Saturday meet, and we're busing on Saturday morning, we can even then utilize Friday. So we always look at the week, and the amount of work we do is about the same in any given week. However, depending on the length of that week and what we have available to us based on our travel schedule, all that work might get crammed into 4 days or 3, or in some instances 5. So obviously, if it's crammed into 5 days, the volume and the intensity of the week is kind of spread out. It becomes a relatively easy week. If you have to install that in 3 days, then it becomes a more intense week. So we sort of manage our volumes and our intensities accordingly. So I hope I'm not going too fast or being too specific. I just like discussing kind of what I enjoy when I'm listening to someone talk about how they approach things. I like to hear how they think or what their ideas are, because then I can usually apply that to my own context. I get what he's trying to do. I see what's important to him. And then I sort of apply it to the particular constraints, because I know not everybody has the same situation I do. And that's a good chance for me to weigh in also and say, it doesn't matter. Very often I talk to people call me with questions, and I'll talk to them and tell them what how we approach it. And I go, well, I don't coach good athletes like you. And it doesn't matter. I don't coach. I've got a girl on my team trying to break 26 seconds in the 200. I coach her no different than I do my girl who runs 22.4. I coach them exactly the same in terms of the weekly work and how I teach them. You can't do anything about someone's athletic ability. That's genetic in nature. It's set. That's not a variable. And so I don't vary the things I do based on the athlete's ability or age. I coach males and females pretty much the same. I coach, 6-year-olds and 20-year-olds the same in terms of how I approach the event and what I talk to them about. Because whether it's a 6-year-old or a female trying to run 60 seconds in the quarter or a female trying to break 22 seconds in the 200, the elements, the goal, if you will, the objective of training is exactly the same for all of those athlete profiles. So an athlete profile doesn't change based on what the objective of the event is. The objective of the event is the objective of the event. So that's kind of how we approach our training week and the block of work that we're presented with. So I don't know how long I have a few more things I can talk about, but I want to make sure that I'm not suppressing any time for questions. Is this a good place to stop and take questions, or do you want me to press on for another 5 minutes?
Why don't we can stop, Vince, and
okay.
And if anybody has any questions, all they have to do is hit *6 on their phones, and then once they're done, just *6 to unmute your phones. So this is the time. *6.
Vince, when you talk about acceleration workouts, what type of different acceleration workouts are you kind of look at?
Okay, well, we do a lot of contrast training. So, for example, when we're installing acceleration, there aren't any blocks anywhere in sight because we don't bring blocks out until we've talked to them and practiced them and installed things and gotten, presumably, to tell them what is important about acceleration. So you can't ever start your accelerations with blocks anywhere near because they're so the athletes' relationships and thought processes about blocks are so dysfunctional that it would be like talking about sobriety with an alcoholic with a bottle of liquor on the table. Like, you can't have that discussion with the alcoholic when the bottle of liquor is on the table. Everything about acceleration must be free of blocks, and only when the basic understanding of what your objectives are installed can you bring blocks into the mix. Now, we do bring blocks into the mix, and we have to, because that's what you're pushing out of, but we don't do it initially. So what we do is acceleration is basically a pushing exercise. So we'll show them film first. We'll show them film. We pick really good models to show our kids what we want. So we'll show them Carmelita Jeter, or we'll show them Carl Lewis, or we'll show them Usain Bolt. Irina Pravalova is really, really good. And when you pick your models, we always pick models who are mechanically doing things right. So we show them that film first, and we say, this is how you should push. And acceleration is basically pushing. See, most people think acceleration is spinning or acceleration is frequency. Acceleration isn't. It's just you're sort of, if you look at the great athletes, really what they're doing is they're just pushing themselves up the track. And that's something literally a 6-year-old can understand, because I've tried that cue before. I told the kids, relax. Sprinting isn't really running. Great athletes just kind of push themselves up the track, and I sort of demonstrated. And I mean, they immediately got it. I mean, because it's so easy. I mean, sprinting isn't spinning. Sprinting is you're sort of pushing yourself up the track. And so we showed them film first, video, and then we give them very brief, a real quick introduction into kind of how to set their feet and their hands, which is basically 1 3/4. Your front toe should be 1 3/4 feet from the line, and your back foot should be about 2.5 to 2 3/4 feet from the line. And we're not worried about any fine-tuned block setting at all because that's too early. We're just trying to install the basics of acceleration. But we do want to get a reasonable, proportionate spread on where their body parts are. And so we kind of start there. That's something you can do in like 3 minutes. And then we get them, we put marks on the track. And we ask them to push out, where they hit the marks for about 10 meters, 15 meters. We start out very modestly in terms of the spacing and the distance that they push for, but we have to start somewhere. And then as they kind of master that and hit every rung, then gradually we'll add, we'll add steps to the ladder. And then when they're kind of stabilized at a particular spacing, we'll change the spacing. And when I call stabilized, if I see, we'll do about 6 to 10 accelerations a session. And they'll be anywhere from, and they'll start out at maybe 15 meters to 25 meters. And we'll do that on Monday, we'll do that on Friday. And when they've had 2 or 3 practices in a row where they're hitting every rung, that would be, if we're doing 6 to 10 accelerations of practice, that would be somewhere between 18 and 30 accelerations in a row that they've really stabilized at. So I know at that point it's time to widen the spacing. So we don't progress the distances until I've kind of seen some stability there at a particular sort of performance level. So we just do accelerations from a 4-point stance, over a tape ladder, and then we'll contrast that. I'll have them do it on the grass. So we'll do say 1 times 15 on the grass, 1 time 15 on the track. 1 time 20 on the grass, 1 time 20 on the track. And we'll keep moving the context just so they can keep executing the same thing with a little bit of stimulation. As we get things installed, we might contrast a resisted start. We have this thing called a run rocket, or you could use a pulley or whatever to resist them. We'll do a resisted start for 20 meters, and then an unresisted start for 30. So we go back and forth, 20 resisted, 30 unresisted. When we get into the competitive part of the season, we'll contrast, do 1 acceleration over the tape ladder, do 1 acceleration by yourself, and do 1 acceleration with the group. So we can kind of see how they're doing pushing against the tape ladder, give them specific feedback. We can give them, they can then do it without the tape ladder, and then they have to do that same movement when people are around them, because novices will run differently when they're in blocks or when they're, quote-unquote, racing somebody versus when they're accelerating on their own. And that's exactly what you're trying to coach them out of. For example, you don't shoot free throws one way in practice and another way in the game, or you don't shoot free throws one way in the first half and another way with 10 seconds left when the game is on the line. The way you shoot free throws well is to learn how to stabilize your technique, address the line in a ritualistic way, and do the same thing over and over and over in a mechanically excellent way. So with that sort of idea of consistency, pushing, all the time, you get them to stabilize their acceleration pattern and not just respond to the situation at hand. Oh, I don't know what that was. Sorry. So we do accelerations and we contrast them in a variety of ways. Blocks, no blocks, flat, spikes, with somebody, by yourself, over a ladder, without the ladder, longer, shorter, etc. So you're only limited. Hello?
We're here, Vince.
Okay, good. Okay. You're only limited in your contrast to sort of whatever responsible combinations you can come up with as a coach. I'm not trying to be evasive. I just like we sort of maybe add complexity as we get some basic installation done. And we don't progress things until we're really good about achieving a certain level of stability before we add more. That's part of growing the training. And watching film really helps. So then after you've had 3 or 4 sessions, you film them, videotape, and then you show them what they're doing compared to Bolt. And it's real easy to move like Bolt. Like what people who accelerate well, it's not a hard move. It's just counterintuitive. People think that acceleration is a quick activity. Quick. It's not. It's a pushing activity. And you can move your parts, as rapidly as you can, but you don't have permission to cut off the range of motion. And if you look at Lewis or Bolt or Jetter, they're going through the full range of motion and lining everything up. And that's a real easy move. People just, it's counterintuitive, so they don't attempt it. So you have to show them what the pros do, if you will, and get them to move the same. And a lot of your athletes will be able to see that. Anything else?
And if you have a question, just hit *6. Hey, Vince, you hear about, the strength training and power training. In the kinetic chain, what are you looking for as the coach to make sure that they're actually pushing?
As regards strength training?
Well, no.
Okay, it's really okay. I can tell you exactly what I'm. Okay. In side view, we do a lot of filming from the side view. When they extend from their pedals, when their front pedal, their front ankle through their ear should be a straight line when they post up. So if you want to kind of experiment with this, film some people who are doing a standing long jump from the side. And you'll notice at toe off, they're completely posted. Okay? So coming out of their pedals in acceleration, they'll be exactly like that, except the recovering knee will also be out front. But the post from the remember, the front ankle to the ear will be a straight line. And in other words, they'll literally be, the knee will be locked out, the glutes will be locked out, hard straight line from the side.
So you're talking about triple extension. If they can't,
triple extension, absolutely.
And if they can't, what corrections are you making?
Well, if they're not triple extended, we just tell them to jump harder or push harder. We essentially what we're telling them that they're doing is they're doing a vertical jump, out of their pedals. And remember, all we've done, a vertical jump, you're jumping exactly perpendicular to the ground plane. If you'll visualize that, like, when a person does a vertical jump, they'll sort of squat down and they'll jump hard, perpendicular to the ground plane. Well, that's exactly what you're doing out of blocks, because in blocks, all you've done is move the ground plane up to 45 degrees. You're still jumping perpendicular to that surface. So just because the surface is moved doesn't mean you're still not doing a vertical jump. You're just jumping as hard as you can off the pedals of your block. Because blocks are meant to be pushed into, not pulled out of. See, people think blocks are there to step out of. They're not. They're to be pushed into. Like when you do a vertical jump, you don't step off the ground. You push into the ground, and the ground repels you. It's the same idea when you sprint. Great sprinters push into the pedals as hard as they can, as long as they can, and the blocks throw you, just like when you do a vertical jump, the ground throws you. So if you push hard into your pedals, you will triple extend because you're doing essentially a vertical jump. You're doing a double leg push. Your feet are split, but you're still doing a double leg push. So I don't know if that answers your question or not. But so what I'm coaching is I'm showing, we're looking at the film, are you hard posted? Are you triple extended? Yeah, and we don't use the word triple extension because a lot of my athletes, their eyes glaze over. So we call it a hard post. Are you posted hard? No, that's a soft post. Post hard. Okay, so you really want me to push? Yes, I want you to push as hard as you can. And the other thing when athletes hear, it's just amazing where the chain breaks in terms of understanding and comprehension because I'm real clear about what I say. I want you to push as hard as you can. Now, what they'll hear when you say that is they'll think you're saying you can push as hard as you want to, or as hard as you feel like you need to, or as hard as you think is okay. And that's I'm not asking you to push as hard as you think you need to, or as hard as you want to, or as hard as you feel like. I'm asking you to push as hard as you can. And so, you say that 2 or 3 times, and, the light starts to go off. And then they'll say something like, well, you mean, so you want me to push hard? And I'm saying, yes, as hard as you can. Like if I had you tied to the wall, I want you to break the chain. Like, I need you to go. Oh. So you just kind of chip away at the idea because nothing about acceleration or sprinting is hard. The difficult thing is what you're asking them to do is counterintuitive. It's opposite of what they think they need to do.
How you doing, Vince? This is Steve Rivers out of Tampa, Florida. Got a question
Hi, Steve.
for you. All right, how you doing, man? As far as the pushing aspect, what type of cues do you use to, if it's counterintuitive, how do you reprogram the central nervous system? What type of cues do you use to reprogram that central nervous system to get it to do what it is that you're asking it to do?
Okay, well, I try to take the reference outside of them. I never trust an athlete to kind of, if the best way to do it is to contrast, show them Usain Bolt's video, and then show them their video from the side, and go side by side. And when you're comparing video, the vital thing is you have to compare frame to frame. So the moment Bolt pushes, the moment Bolt's toe gets off the track, that you stop your athlete's video frame by frame the moment their toe gets off the track. So you're always comparing position to position. So that's one. So you take the reference outside of themselves. Okay. Number 2, you do simple activities that they can do, and you never express them about the central nervous system or that because they don't care about that. They don't get it.
Right. It's just more as a coaching cue.
No. I know that. I'm not taking issue. I'm just reminding that. So the point. So you get them to standing long jump, and you film them. Or you get from the side, because I guarantee they'll post up doing the standing long jump. Or we start out with a wall drill. We make them lean against the wall with a stable ankle into a hard post and just hold themselves there, not doing anything. Both toes on the ground, just post it up. Then we'll ask them to bring one leg up, and sort of hold themselves sort of in a hard posted position with one leg up. Okay, just stationary, and I film them, and I make sure that position matches, Bolt and Jeter when they're coming off their pedal. Then, once they can kind of feel that body lean, then I ask them to do the wall drill and just keep marching into the track with a stable ankle. Then when they do that, I ask them to march into the track with a stable ankle and slowly rise. And the recovering shin should always match the body lean. So as the body lean rises, so does the recovering shin. So there's a parallel relationship between the shin and the hard post. And as that post rises, the shin angle just reflects the hard post. It's an ever rising hard post. So by showing them video, getting them to what we call pose the position with no movement, then pose the position with the recovering leg out front, then we march it at a slow tempo, and then we march it at a faster tempo, and then we jog it, and then we sprint it. So you can progress the wall drill very quickly. Like you can have them sprinting against the wall, pushing. Like I just tell them, just push the wall over, and they'll line things up pretty well because, the people who don't get it are the people who kick their butt or will lift the heel, because nobody who hits a blocking sled lifts their heel or kicks their butt because the sled doesn't go anywhere. If you want to move the wall or push the wall over or push the sled, you'll stab back and push through the ground and extend to drive the sled away from you or the wall away from you, as the case may be. So any skills or aptitudes you have as a physical education teacher, if you're teaching someone to push a fence over or push a wall over or push a blocking sled back, you just have to trigger into those sensibilities. And again, it's easy to do. People just very often don't associate that with sprinting, but that's what acceleration is. That's what driving is pushing. You're just pushing your way up the track. Forget that it's a sprint. Forget that it's practice. You're just sort of pushing your way up the track. And you can see this, like if you watch video, that's what they're doing. They're not really sprinting. They're just sort of pushing themselves up the track.
Okay, but how do you incorporate those type of movements to have them correlate as far as the low heel recovery with the shin heel recovery as the body lean changes? How do you correlate that beginning acceleration portion, their arms, into the process?
Well, I never worry about arms ever because my athletes aren't very smart, so I can't hit them with a lot. I'm always going to err on the side of simplicity. I'll just see if I can get them pushing first and some kind of stability with them pushing away from their pedals. Okay. If they've stabilized that a little bit, then I'll show them the film again, and I'll talk about the heel recovery, and we'll isolate on that. And then when they're able to push and the heels are lower, okay, and they're sort of stable at it, then I can maybe introduce something else. But I don't expect everything all at once. I would never make any progress. I'm just trying to get them to push away from the line, just kind of push themselves up the track. And it's really easy to do because, like, literally I coached a group of 6-year-olds, and I have that picture on my wall from that day reminding me of the simplicity of this. And they all looked terrible. I said, okay, accelerate for me, run from spot A to spot B, and it was horrible. And then I said, look, quit thinking of it as really running and just kind of push your way up the track. And I demonstrated, and they were perfect in the first rep and stayed perfect the rest of the day. And I took a picture of them, and the little 6-year-old boy I have in the photo, he looks like Usain Bolt, and the little 8-year-old girl next to him looks like Carmelita Jeter. It was their second rep. Because they understood. I'm just kind of pushing away from. I'm like no sweat, man. You want me to push up the track? I can do that. It's literally so easy a child can do it. So you have to take all of the preconception and silliness, you have to just remove it. And that's what we try to do. We say, look, just clear your heads for a second. Forget, I'm not a track coach. I'm just roll with me a minute here. Just kind of try to. And, I used to be able to demonstrate really well. I can't demonstrate as well anymore. My body won't. I can still hit the moves, but I hurt myself every time I try. So I don't demonstrate as much anymore. I use, video more and more and more. But, if you can demonstrate, you just kind of push yourself up. It's really easy to do. It sounds good. It sounds clean. And when you do it and when you see it, it's inevitable. Like it could only be that way. It can't be any other way. So that we break through by showing film and wall drills to start seizing on their awarenesses. But the wall drills are never done in isolation. The wall drills are done in contrast to or in conjunction with the acceleration session. Okay, now that you feel that, you're pushing against the wall pretty well, I want you to feel exactly the same thing on the track. And that's how we do it.
Got it.
That's how we
appreciate
try to,
it.
that's how we, just, you gotta somehow, I don't know how to say this, in a gentle, sort of loving way, you have to kind of seize the situation and put it out of context of the track where they can actually feel their body position for a second. And when you get that, you say, okay, now do that on the track. As I said, standing long jumps are really good too. And you can film them, and they really will triple extend and post up on a standing long jump. The only thing about a standing long jump, you just have, this double leg, and the toes are together. The sprinting, the stance, one heel, the one heel is at the other toe. You're jumping, but from a split stance, not a toe-to-toe stance. If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Anything else?
Hey, Vince.
Yes, sir.
Hey, this is Chris from Denver. Hey, I didn't hear you talk much about in-season and out-of-competition, in-season or out-of-season testing, and how you reach some of your goals using some test parameters. Did I miss that?
No, I didn't. We test a lot in the fall, occasionally in the spring, though not, the reason we don't test that much in the spring is obviously, we're getting some performance data there from them,
yes,
which is kind of telling us what we need. So in the fall, we test all kind of things. We test flying 30. We
Absolutely.
test, one of my favorites is on the first week of practice, we do 2 times 150 with 10 minutes rest.
Okay.
In flats, as fast as they can. Okay, and that gives kind of a base read. And then later in November, we'll do 1 time 150 all out. So the 150 is a really, really good testing distance. Fly 30s are essential. We train all fall to do a squad pentathlon on the Tuesday before November. And that is a 30-meter dash, overhead back shot, between the knees shot. Overhead backwards, between the knees forward shot. Standing long jump and standing triple jump. And we have a scoring table and who's the most in. And, I mean, we get after each other. So part of that is to see, who competes. The other part of it is what we've noticed is that as your pentathlon score rises, so does your PR in every event, the 800 on down. So, whether you're a shot putter, a half miler, a 100-meter athlete, or a long jumper, if your pentathlon score increases, so does your PR. And I guess the reason for that is I guess it's an indication of effective strength and power. So,
absolutely.
Now what we'll do, we'll periodically, I don't over-test those things in the fall, but I'll test those things. I'll get a base test early, and then one maybe 3 weeks before the pentathlon. Just to get an indication, are we progressing? Are we kind of figuring things out? We also test in the weight room in the fall because we test right before exams in December. We max lift in the weight room,
right,
to kind of set our competitive phase numbers for the season to come in terms of riding their intensity.
Right.
So, in the fall, we're very aggressively building strength. I mean, we don't putz around in the weight room. I mean, we really, really hit it. Jenna Batarmo, she could, she cleaned 85 kilos. That's pretty good. And she weighed, Jenna weighed 125 pounds. So whatever, 85 kilos is compared to 120 pounds, it's like, that's probably, it's probably 185 kilos, probably around 190 pounds.
190 pounds.
So she can pull, 1.5 times her body weight straight off the floor.
So what is that in direct correlation? When we talk about those, and I use the East German charts actually, when we talk about those, do you test in direct correlation with their event specificity? So the testing that you do, you're doing it basically when you're in your acceleration phase, you're testing to see where they are with acceleration. And when testing for your strength and power stuff, you're actually doing it in direct correlation with the stuff they're doing in the weight room, so you can match that with what it takes
very
to move.
much, because they need
if you want to move 200 pounds out the blocks, we know what we have to do in the squat rack.
Right, but this is the thing. It's all relative. Like Olivia Expone, who just won the Penn Relays 100, like, she is really weak, so I'm on her case all the time. Like, she's a lot better in the weight room this year than she was a year ago when she was kind of putzing around.
Yeah.
You know, and so we're always like, not everybody learns at the, you know, what I was referring to earlier, not everybody learns at the same rate or has the same ability to learn, but we're trying to teach them all the same thing. So you may get one of them in 6 months. They may be, like, tremendous, and you might have to remediate others. But everybody, we're trying to teach the same skills, and every athlete is responsible for the skills we're trying to teach them. Although as teachers, we understand not everybody comes online at the same time, but we're hammering away at them at where they are.
Okay.
So I'm really excited.
I certainly agree. Thank you.
I'm really excited when Olivia power cleans 52 kilos. Like, I'm throwing stuff in the air and, like, you know, I'm crying and, you know, and people are looking at me like, man, what's wrong with you? You know, but it's all relative. Like, you know, Olivia couldn't, you know, she was power cleaning 40 kilos last year.
Right.
So you're trying to move everybody forward all the time, and you know as a coach that that's not going to happen, but you're always trying. You're always pushing away at the rock pile.
Mm-hmm.
And it never stops. And now that Olivia's at 52, now I'm telling her, okay, we got to get to 55. And when she gets to 55, I'm going to tell her she's got to do 57. And, you know, it's every week, every year. You know, I've got them for 4 years. So, I mean, it doesn't matter where they start. It matters where they finish relative to where they start.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Coach.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we got a couple more minutes, and then we're going to call it a day. So any other questions?
Yeah, Vince, I have another question. This is Chris from Denver. We talk about shin angles in the start and delayed acceleration in general from the start. I know many people, and especially some adolescents and many of the high schoolers, are trying to delay the acceleration early on. Do you think there's a diminishing return when we don't try to apply great force at the start from the pedals of the blocks through the first 5 steps? Do you think there's diminishing return down the track if kids perceptually believe that they can delay the acceleration? Because I think that's only one opportunity where we can apply great force in the race.
Well, no, I don't understand. I've never heard the term delaying acceleration. I've never heard of anything or any, like, if someone's into that and, like, they have a higher level of understanding than I do.
I hear a lot of coaches that say that we can delay, that we can not push so hard here because we can push later. You can only push so hard early.
No. Here's the way you look at acceleration. Acceleration is front loaded.
That's right.
The most important step is the 0 step off the front pedal. Okay. The next most important step is 1. The next most important step is 2. You know, then step 3 is an important step 2 was. Step 4 is important step. So you have to hit the big chunk and squeeze out as much as you can. So it's diminishing return the further you get up the track. So you got to make sure you get the big chunks and accelerate from 0. So if you delay acceleration, if that's actually what someone's teaching or whatever, that's insane because you've given up the 5 big hits that were available to you as you overcame inertia. Like 0 is the most important step.
Absolutely.
And the further out you go, I don't want to say it's unimportant, but with each subsequent ground contact, that's less and less of an opportunity to establish momentum, and therefore a less and less important step. Step 14 isn't nearly as important as step 4. Step 4 isn't nearly as important as step one. Step one isn't as important as step zero. It works backwards. So you got to hit the big chunks, and I mean, get off your pedal hard and keep pushing.
Oh, I listened earlier. I was really your analysis of the early push in the shingles was profound, because I truly believe that. But I just hear other people think that because they see people look like they're not really pushing early in the race, that they're delaying something. And I heard that terminology, and I thought it was ludicrous.
If you look at Lewis, just look at video. I mean, he's pushing insanely hard.
I know it doesn't look like it, so that's the thing.
Insanely hard.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Coach.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
All right. One more question. Anybody have that question?
If not, I have a closing remark.
All right. Go ahead.
Okay, well, just remember, start your progressions early. Start teaching them to sprint and accelerate early. One thing that frustrates me, people often say, well, you don't want to peak too soon. I've never seen anyone ever peak too soon in my entire life. I've seen someone not be able to go well late in the season because they got hurt, or because this happened, or because they broke up with their boyfriend, or whatever. The problem in this country isn't that people are peaking too soon and then they can't answer the bell when they have to. That's not a problem. The problem in this country is people don't peak at all because we sit around. So get them running. Get them running fast. Get them. Your high school season is it's 10 weeks long, and there really is no such thing as peaking. So get them running. Get them hitting it. Get them running. You'll get a lot more out of your training than if you just sit around and delay all specific training for some magical late time in the season. They won't have enough time to learn it or coordinate it because that takes time. And that's it. So when you hear the term don't peak too soon, that's the one thing that you should be most suspicious of and the thing that you should reject more than any other notion that's floating out there on the street. That's the one to run screaming away from, because it's false, it's a lie, and all it does is make it creates irresponsible coaching decisions. The guy who wins the NCAA track meet in the 100 is the guy who runs fast on March the 15th. There's your winner. And if you don't believe me, look it up. You can't run 10:05 in June unless you run 10:15 on March 15th. You can only move the needle so far in 9 weeks. So get out, get ready, get them going, then they'll hit for you.
Appreciate that, Coach.
Yes. Hey, it's been fun. Hope I didn't bore anybody.
No, we're quiet with wisdom.
Thank you. You and I need to talk. If you're somewhere where I am, I want to meet you, okay?
Not a problem. Just come on down to Tampa anytime you can. I'll be right here waiting for you.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you.
Well, hey, Vince.
Yes, sir.
Vince, Gabe Sanders from Boston University. Just want to chime in and say thanks a lot.
Long time no see. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, about a day and a half, right? But
yes, right.
I can't help. I was resistant to jump in on a few of these, but I just want to say appreciate the time and you doing this and so on and so forth.
Well, it's fun. I'm touched to have the opportunity. Had a great time. We all have a great season, man. Let's get it done in 2013, everybody. Okay?
Well, Ron, take it to a close, man.
We can get somebody to mute their phone there for a second here.
All right, Ron, go ahead. Take it away.
Okay. Really appreciate you doing this for us, and hopefully we can get you back again sometime later in the year. And it's always good talking to you. I know a lot of times we don't get an opportunity to really sit down and talk, but we did get another opportunity this past December. But, man, I wish you a successful rest of the season. If it was anything like this past weekend, y'all should really do well going forward. But, again, on behalf of USATF Georgia Coaches Advisory, we really appreciate you doing this, and look forward to hopefully getting you again on another subject. And with that, I guess we'll close it out.